Hey guys, I'm going to give you a fair warning and tell you that if you're watching this video, it is spoiler heavy. So if you haven't seen Wonder Woman 1984 yet, please kindly get out. But if that's what you're here for and you decide to stick around for a deep dive, please do me a favor and feel free to hit the subscribe button for future content, videos on movies and movie reviews and movie deep dives, all things movies. So without further ado, let's get into it. I'm going to start off with the positives of the movie, the reason why I liked the movie. First of all, we have movies back. Big releases. I saw this movie in IMAX. IMAX! So I'm well aware that I may have had a better time than most just because of the format that I watched it on. Huge screen, the blaring sound. It was very exciting. I had fun watching this movie, keyword being fun, because clearly that's what they wanted with this installment. They wanted it fun. They wanted it lighthearted. They wanted it bright. They wanted it... which they totally nailed. I mean, the gripes coming from that we'll get into later, but for now, they nailed the fun, lighthearted nature of it. Which shout out to the stuntmen and women who pulled off all these action sequences because they were really cool to watch and they were fun. I can't start off the video without singing the praises of Gal Gadot. Gal Gadot is the reason for these movies. It's the reason why we show up. She is Zack Snyder saw the future in her and he persevered through the severe backlash that he got from casting her, and she completely checked all the boxes. She's charming, she's warm, she's kind, she's compassionate. It all radiates through her and it oozes out of the screen, and she's supremely watchable. She's got great screen presence. She is Wonder Woman. Which brings me to my next point, the performances, the acting performances in this movie. They were all stellar. I think the actors carried the weight of this film on their shoulders because, let's face it, the script, the story was ridiculous. There wasn't much redeeming qualities to the story and the script, so the actors had to work with what they had. And I think they all, as performers, I think they all did a very good job. So I'm throwing praise at Pedro Pascal, the Mandalorian, for actually having such a good time and chewing the scenery, realizing that the script that he has is, he's probably reading it like, oh God, I can't believe I have to say these lines. But he's just like, whatever, this is a Wonder Woman movie. I'm playing the big bad and I'm going to have a blast doing it. For what he had to work with, I think he did a very good job as performance-wise. He had to say some pretty ridiculous things, but he sold it for me. He was fun to watch. And adding to the great performances, we got Chris Pine back. I mean, we knew we were getting him back. They spoiled that for us a long time ago. We just didn't know how we were going to get him back. But the chemistry between him and Gal Gadot was just brilliant in the first one, and they haven't skipped a beat with the chemistry in this one. There is a growing concern about the consent issue revolving around the way he came back, but we're going to get into that later. That's not for now. What I'm trying to get at is that Chris Pine, his performance was great. As always, he's always a wonderful surprise, and I love seeing those two together. Only this time the roles were reversed. In the first movie, he took her away from Themyscira to help save the world, so she was the fish out of water. Now he's blasted into the 1980s, and he has no idea what the world has for him, and so he's the fish out of water. And most of the fun that's to be had is to watch him getting acclimated to his new surroundings. This dynamic here is the heart of the film. All the emotional stakes that take place in this movie ride on their chemistry and those two together, and they do it well. Now let me get to the biggest surprise of Wonder Woman 1984 for me personally. When I first heard that Kristen Wiig was cast as Cheetah, I was like, we're happy to announce that we're casting Kristen Wiig. What? Don't get me wrong, I love Kristen Wiig. I think she's supremely talented and I watch everything that she does. If her name's on the billboard, I'm going to see the movie. But I love her as a comedic actress. Being a big bad or a villain in a comic book movie is something totally different. You have to have a sense of intimidation. You have to be menacing. You can't just be a good dramatic and comedic actor. You also have to be threatening a bit. And I did not see that in Kristen Wiig when they first cast her. But if I learned anything from Heath Ledger's Joker, I learned never to judge an actor again ever until you see the finished product. So I was a little taken aback by it, but I was willing to see where they were going for. I was like, I trust Patty Jenkins. She must see something in her that we don't. And boy, did she ever. Kristen Wiig completely crushed her part as Barbara Minerva, aka the Cheetah, another ridiculous character that she had to pull off with just her talent. I had no idea just how menacing Kristen Wiig could be when she puts her all into it. She was introduced kind of cliched, quirky. She reminded me of Catwoman in Batman Returns when Michelle Pfeiffer is like with the pushing up the glasses, the little assistant like, oh, I'm a helpless little girl, and then seeing her slow progression into the super athletic, the super fit, and just apex predator Cheetah. She nailed it. Again, I'm speaking to Wiig's performance, not the character Cheetah, because I wasn't a big Wonder Woman comic book reader, so I wasn't really sure the origin story behind Barbara Minerva, and I wasn't sure if the movie kind of did it right. I'm still not, but I'm going by just Kristen Wiig's performance because she's one of those actors, kind of like Jim Carrey or Will Ferrell. When she shows up on the screen in any movie, I'm like, oh, I like her. Let's see what she's funny. So the fact that she pulled this off is pretty impressive. And if you ask anybody whether they loved or hated the movie, everyone is pretty unanimous in the fact that Kristen Wiig deserved to be there, and she was actually kind of underutilized. Patty Jenkins said in an interview that the hardest thing about this whole movie was getting Cheetah right. Because she saw the blowback from Cats, which it's just unavoidable. You're going to get memes that compare you to Cats, but she saw the whole, release the butthole cut and all that stuff, and she didn't want that happening here, and she wanted to get the villain right. So they went through painstaking lengths just to get the visually get Cheetah right, and whether they hit the mark or they missed it, at least they put their all into it. Try not to keep this video too long. That is pretty much all the stuff that I really enjoyed about the movie. Now let's get into the nitty gritty. Probably the reason why I have a viewer here to hear just not only what they got wrong, but also the things that make you go, huh? What? Wait a minute. Huh? Oh, come on. No. Let's start with the mall scene. The infamous mall scene. The mall scene that changed the tone of the entire franchise. Continuity and character be damned. Wonder Woman is now zipping through the streets of DC with her lasso like Spider-Man, just saving everybody who needs to be saved. And while she's out there being your friendly neighborhood Wonder Woman, she comes across a mall that's being robbed for its artifact. It's this dreamstone that these guys are looking for. Regardless of the motives of this scene here, it was the tone that really, I kind of sat back in my seat and I was like, oh no, this is where we're going. It reminded me of the first Spider-Man, or like just the Sam Raimi Spider-Man back in the early 2000s, before the MCU, when Marvel didn't really know what it was. The cheese, like it was just a big bowl of superhero cheese. She's zipping around and she's winking at kids, and I was expecting one of the people to be like, go Spidey, go! In those movies, that always made me cringe whenever I would see that. I don't understand who that's for, and that must be a comic book panel that they wanted to bring to life, but every time they do that, I'm just like, oh, I hate that. The there goes my hero look from the unsuspecting public. Like, I hate that. So after the opening mall scene, which came after the Themyscira scene, which, by the way, why are we not spending more time in Themyscira? It's just an incredible land. They should make its own movie about that. They wouldn't spend nearly enough time about it. When I heard that Robin Wright was coming back to play her aunt, or the badass aunt from the first one, I was so happy, but she was used even less in this one than she was in the first one. Also, correct me if I'm wrong, but I rewatched the first one in preparation of this the night before, and wasn't her mother against her being this warrior in Themyscira? Wasn't her aunt training her in hiding, and the mom caught him when she was already a teenager? They hired another actress to play her as a teenager to be like, what are you doing? And she was like really mad at her sister for training her as a warrior. Then all of a sudden in this movie, in the beginning, she's young little Diana again, and she's training her hardest to be this Olympian type warrior goddess, and the mom's cool with it, and she's all proud. What was that all about? I guess it's best not to think of these things. After the mall scene, it takes an hour to get to the next action scene. That's another problem for me. Now, I get it. Sequels are supposed to be bigger. They're supposed to be better. They're supposed to blow open the universe. But you don't spend that entire hour developing these two characters. The movie's called Wonder Woman 1984, not Barbara Minerva and the Walking Magic 8-Ball guy 1984. It's Wonder Woman. We came to see Wonder Woman. So the only great parts sprinkled into that hour-long developing characters and whatnot was when Steve came back and they got to have their little fish out of water banter together, which was such a delight to watch. Which actually brings me to the controversy around this, which is as good a time as any to talk about it right now. Again, I said in the beginning, spoilers. This is spoiler, so stop watching if you don't want anything ruined for you. But Steve Trevor coming back had to do with the Dreamstone. She made a wish on the Dreamstone, which, by the way, side note with that Dreamstone, even when Barbara was making her wish and she's holding the rock and all of a sudden her hair blows, she's in the middle of the Smithsonian, this little enclosed office with no windows, and her hair blows back. And I was like, okay, the level of cheese is getting a little ridiculous now. You don't notice just while your eyes are closed, your hair is blowing back. You don't think that's a little weird when you make a wish on this Dreamstone? But that's not the gripe. The gripe is Steve comes back in another man's body. In the credits, he is credited as just handsome man, so he doesn't even have a name. So the level of consent here is what people are very worried about. Because if you think about it, a guy this guy at the end of the movie that just had his body possessed by someone from World War I, he basically lost his life. Like, what does that mean? Did it feel like he was in a coma? Was he in a dream state? Was he like in the sunken place, kind of screaming at the top of his lungs and nobody could hear him, and behind his own eyes, watching Steve Trevor do his thing with his own body? I mean, did he lose his job? Was his family looking for him? Did he have any loved ones? I mean, this guy literally just disappeared from himself, and he woke up in the middle of a riot while the whole world was coming to an end. Like, she couldn't even be like, hey, let's get you home safely. No. He was like, he woke up and he was like, wait a minute, why is everyone screaming? Why are people dead? What the hell is going on? That's a little problematic if you think about it. I understand this is just a fun superhero movie, but that's pretty heavy when you really stop to think about it. So it's best not to think about it. So the Dreamstone has the powers to grant everyone's wishes and erect this huge wall in the middle of Cairo, Egypt, but yet it can't bring Steve back physically in his own body. So the fact that he's in someone else's body right off the bat makes you think like, oh, well, here we go. She's going to have to lose him again. So that was already set up for failure, but it brought about actually a beautiful part. I'm going to get into the continuity of these movies right after this, but let's say the continuity, Justice League, Batman vs. Superman, let's say none of that existed. Let's just say that this was Wonder Woman's just progression as a hero. This part was beautiful to watch in the theater. It was very impactful when she's like, she didn't want to lose him again. He's like, you have to renounce your wish. You have to, this is the way you're going to save the world. She's like, I don't want to do it. And then she kind of like Kevin Bacon just punch dancing out his rage in Footloose. It's like running, and she's like, ah! she grabs her lasso and she just whips the sky, and she leaps up and she starts learning how to fly. Remembering what Steve said about flying and putting that her heart and soul into it, and she's literally breaking out of her emotional shell to be like, I need to be this hero, and being okay with letting her loved one go, and she's flying, and it's a really nice emotional moment. That was the emotional crux of the movie, but she learns how to fly. This is Wonder Woman 1984, and she learns how to fly. We can't just pretend like Justice League and Batman vs. Superman and stuff didn't happen, because those movies introduced her character. So if you're into the DCEU movies and you're following the storyline, why is she flying in this movie, but yet you jump forward in Batman vs. Superman and she's hopping on a plane to escape because she doesn't want to be a hero. She doesn't want to be a part of the limelight. Does nobody remember in the Batman vs. Superman and Justice League movies when they're saying, where did you go? You disappeared. You turned your back on the world because of a broken heart. Does no one remember the woman who was zipping around like Spider-Man in DC, just mysteriously saving people? Or does no one remember the woman's voice that mysteriously talked to the entire world, asking them to renounce their wishes? This was like a world-ending event, and she stopped it. So the continuity is a huge, huge problem in this movie. Also, in the previous movies, the movies that introduced her character, she turned her back because of the broken heart, because she lost Steve Trevor, her one true love. So the fact that at the end of this movie, when she learns that she needs to love again, and she's looking at Handsome Man now that he's out of the sunken place and got back into his own body, and they're kind of flirting with each other, and she's smiling, and he's like, no, see you around, happy holidays. And he walks away, and she's like, It's like, no, you're supposed to carry this pain with you for the next 40 years because that's where the story was going. So I understand if you want to take creative liberties and kind of want to veer off or whatever, but you can't just erase the past. You can't just say, was your character. They hired Gal Gadot to play this version of Wonder Woman. You can't just pretend like all those other movies didn't happen. Patty Jenkins said in an interview that she wanted this to be a Trojan horse for her idea of a superhero. That if you think about it, she said that nobody in this movie died, and our main hero beat our main villain with a conversation. Now, I get it. It's a very heads in the clouds situation, like, oh, the world is perfect. Things don't end up that way. Just like the Joker, some people just want to watch the world burn. And this is a comic book movie where we like to see our heroes defeat our villains. It's all about the fighting. But regardless, she tried something new, and whether you liked it or not, this is the way she was going for it. So to sum up, I understand the gripes on both sides of the spectrum. I understand the people that enjoyed it and just said, oh, get over it. It's just a fun movie. But I kind of get tweaked about the people that are just like, oh, just because it didn't, live up to your comic book fanboy cisgender version of what Wonder Woman should be. It's like, no, it's kind of just logic. You have to go by the logic of it all. I'm not a die-hard comic book, fanboy that's going to gripe on it just because it didn't go by the comic books. But I am a big enough fan to go out and see all of her outings. So kind of have some consistency here. Don't just retcon everything because it didn't work for you. This is coming from the same director as well. Patty Jenkins did the first Wonder Woman. The first Wonder Woman was a game changer. That's the hardest thing to live up to, is the fact that it raised the bar so high. So when you raise the bar this high, it's really hard to backtrack from that. I understand they're just like, oh, let's make this a chapter in her life or whatever. But I had friends of mine, especially women, that went to see the first movie and burst into tears when she climbed that ladder and went across no man's land. It was like a pivotal moment in feminist movie history, where it's just like, we're here and we're gonna shit up, you know? So to take everyone's expectations and their love for the character and just kind of revert back to the old Christopher Reeve Superman type movies, yeah, it's a fun installment. I could detach myself. I did throughout the movie. I detached myself from my expectations and said, oh, let me just enjoy the ride because this is clearly way off from what I had expected. So yes, I was very let down by the movie. It's not without its entertainment. It's just not a good movie. I was entertained by it, hence the reason why I gave it a go. But I graded it on the Iron Man 2 learning curve. It's like Patty Jenkins, just like Jon Favreau back in the day. You made Iron Man, you made Wonder Woman, two groundbreaking superhero movies. And then Iron Man 2, you're just like, whoa, Jon Favreau, this was you, right? This, like, did you sleepwalk through this one? Same thing with Patty Jenkins. Everybody gets one. So that's why I'm not too upset about this one. I don't think it deserves all the hate that it's getting, but it definitely isn't as good as some of the critics are trying to make it out to be. The movie's fine. It's a fine movie to watch. Probably not going to buy it when it hits DVD, but I'm not mad that I paid for a ticket to see it in the theater. I personally think they should hire the writers for the DC animated movies to work on these big budget movies because they're the ones that are getting it right. Everyone knows that the MCU is crushing the cinematic experience. Marvel controls movies, live action movies, but when it comes to animated movies, DC owns. DC is the gold standard for comic book movies and the writing and the stories in their animated movies. Hire a couple of those guys, throw them on the live action. It'll be all right. I'm just so happy that we're doing this again, that people are getting riled up about a movie because it's been a very dark 9 months or however long it's been since March that everything's shut down. I'm traveling to different states to see these movies in the movie theaters to keep supporting. And the fact that there have been no new movies have been pretty hard for me to handle since this is my life and what I live and breathe. So the fact that they've released Wonder Woman 1984 so everyone could just like attack it, whether with like good compliments or bad, jeers and whatnot. It's cool to be back in this discourse again and talking to people about something new. I hope this happens more. I hope this is a snowball effect. So I thank Patty Jenkins and the team for giving us a movie to just talk about again. I'm having a blast getting back into the saddle. That said, if you want, drop in the comments below and talk to me. Talk to me about what I missed. Talk to me about what I didn't talk about, because to be honest, I didn't want this video to be too long. I could go on a lot longer if I wanted to, but I wanted to save you guys a little bit of time so we could finish it up in the comments and stuff like that. Let's talk movies, guys. Let's talk movies. I have a blast doing it. So please don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more videos coming out. Turn a little bell on for the notifications for reviews and whatnot. I live and breathe movies. This is what I do, and I want to help as much as I can. So take Wonder Woman's lead and just be wonderful to each other.